All right, welcome everybody to SimplyCyber Live, the YouTube channel designed to help you make and take a cybersecurity career further, faster. I'm your host, Gerald Ozier, and you know on this live stream, we're always bringing the heat when it comes to cybersecurity, whether it's career, technology, labs, you call it, we got it. Today, we've got a good one. I hope you're super excited. I do want to say before we bring our guest on, thank you very much for being here, whether you're watching live or on replay. I really appreciate the support. You guys are an awesome community. If you have a question, if you're live and you have a question, drop it in chat, put a Q in the front so it's easier for me to scrub through and find it. We're going to be talking to Nato Riley today. Nato is an amazing individual. I've had some time to get to know him. Very impressive, very smart fella. So I think we're going to learn quite a bit from him today. So just so you understand what we're doing today, we are talking to Nato all about getting started with cybersecurity mentoring. And we are going to be covering the gambit of like everything mentoring, who's it for? How do you do it? What's the best practices, etc. But let me just tell you, Nato is a senior instructor at Rapid Ascent. He's also a YouTube content creator at NATO as Code. And he kind of identifies as a DevSecOps engineer. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, it's really going to play nicely for the folks who really lean towards the technical side. I'm super excited to bring him on. Let's get Nato in the stream here. Hey, whoop, that's not a good one, Nato. Let's get rid of that one. How you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nato, real quick, for those of you who may not know you, I did give a little brief intro, but what would you like people to know about Nato Riley?
Well, I'm a person who, even though I have lots of actual education from college, things like that, I value my self-taught education probably overall more than that. And I like to do a lot of my own side projects. If you ever look at anything that I'm doing, there's probably something that I'm always doing. And I like technologies that have to do with data science. And then I also just pretty much, if you need help getting a career, getting a job, something that I've pretty much done all my life. My dad was a mentor for others. And so I watched him doing it. And then I guess it just kind of turns into your life. You just help people. It's what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's very satisfying too, I might add. So let's just dig right in, Nato, and get into what cybersecurity mentoring is. So, to even take a step back, let's actually define what we're talking about. So what is mentoring to you?
So when I think about mentoring, because there's coaching, mentoring, training, all these different ideas. And when I think about the difference between mentoring versus, say, coaching is sort of maybe having a session where you kind of help someone work through ideas and their way of thinking to kind of come up with newer ideas. But then when we're thinking about mentoring, it's sort of helping guide others toward a goal that hopefully maybe is something that they're interested in, which involves getting, to know who you're trying to talk to help them get to wherever it is in their head that seems interesting that they want to get to. And that's how I see mentorship, I guess.
Yeah. So do you see the relationship between coaching and mentoring to kind of further drive into the differences between those two? Do you see the relationship between the two individuals is different in those relationships?
I do. And some of my opinions come from, I'll give you an example. I have business coaches and business mentors, and say the difference. And I learned this from my coaches more specifically, where I'd be saying something and be like, well, hold on, this is a coaching session. They're like, so we're going to try to formulate how to get your thinking to kind of structure a certain way. And so if you're trying to figure out how to structure your thinking, coaching, that's a little different from, say, mentorship is where you're sort of getting coaching toward your actions. And so if you're really trying to get greater outcomes, you want to have the mental and the actions, you put it together, and then you can build bigger goals. So it's kind of building different elements of things that help you, I guess, move toward goals more efficiently or faster, I guess.
Yeah. So I know within the cybersecurity space, there's certainly a lot of discussion around mentoring and, how do I get a mentor? What's the process and everything like that? I guess, kind of jump into the next question here, but I do want to, I have a couple questions I want to drill into, but if someone's thinking to themselves, could I be a mentor? I've done things, I've helped people. Am I a mentor? So I guess if someone's thinking about it, maybe they want to formalize it. Like, why should someone become a mentor?
I think that's a really magical question, because really, I think that maybe the simplest way for me to put it is, at some point there was something that you wanted. And so whatever you do in your own life, there's someone else who wishes that was there tomorrow. So every day that you have today is someone else's tomorrow that they wish that they could have. And so the generous amount of information that you share about your journey and your unique path that helped you get to your today, in a way, like that's a key to a special gateway for someone else who looks up to you. And so if you feel like you've done anything, like maybe you just graduated high school and you got into college, go mentor people on how you got into college, right? You don't have to be 40 years old to mentor. You just have to have something that maybe I guarantee you've done something. You could have even built a gaming computer. It doesn't even matter what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I think it was really important for me coming into this live stream to impart upon the audience is that mentorship. I really feel personally, when I think of mentorship, I think of like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker, and it's this like permanent relationship, and it's this massive skill, for lack of a better term, using the Force, living with the Force, that defines that relationship. And while I think that is mentorship, I think it misappropriately defines it as that level of magnitude. I'm an advocate, and based on what you just said, Nato, I think you are too, that people should really understand that mentorship can be a short-lived relationship for a very specific purpose. And I don't know if that maps to coaching, and maybe I didn't understand the difference myself. But I mentor people on cybersecurity, but I'm also doing like YouTube stuff, and I don't know. So I seek out experts who have done certain things and seek mentorship as well. But sometimes it's a very specific skill, like how to use Instagram better, or sometimes it's more like, how do I level up my career and become a GRC analyst at 1, 2, or 3. So what are your thoughts on kind of the temporal element of a mentoring relationship?
I've thought about this a lot lately too, because I guess I think about a lot of things all the time. But I guess to be specific about that sort of relationship, I see the internet having changed what mentorship can be. Because nowadays, let's say that you're looking for someone who is directly in line with like having experienced a very unique path that you wish to follow somehow. Like maybe you do want to become a DevSecOps engineer. That's one of the strangest careers on this known earth that I've ever heard of. But for someone who wants to figure out how in the world do you get into some of these like strange workspaces, with the internet, you can literally just like Google whoever that might be and find them right away. Versus in the past, if you're trying to like find someone, it's like this arduous journey where you have to like figure out like what kind of town has people who do that. Now you got to get there, right? Now you got to figure out how to survive there while looking for these people. You got to go network, maybe go to some bars or some plays or something. I don't know. Go everywhere you can. Now you just go to Google, just type it in and be like, oh, there's a person right there who is exactly where I need to like connect some context in my life I've never lived, right? So it's like, what have you not lived? Google that person who can fill in that gap. And that's how I see modern mentorship relationships, which means it could be a very short-lived experience for that matter.
Yeah, you bring up another interesting point as far as the kind of, I don't want to call it disintegration, but the elimination of that social angst, and not even to talk about geographically distance. Like even if the person at the conference, like they just gave a talk on something you're interested in, you may feel social angst to approach them. You may feel like, oh, they don't have time or whatever. And I feel like with technology, with that kind of, everybody can hear everybody all at the same time, like in a Discord server or something like that. It really lowers the barrier to approaching. And I also would argue in the cybersecurity community, of course, I don't have a lot of exposure to other professional communities, but within the cybersecurity community, it's become a lot more inclusive. I didn't ask you how old you are, but if you're old enough, you would recall, as I do, it used to be a bit more toxic, a bit more elite going on in the community, and now it's shifted much more to inclusion and helping. And I think that really lends itself to be able to find a mentor in a timely fashion using Discord and stuff like that.
I would agree with that. People are a lot friendlier in the market these days. Like I remember people would just be so mean. Like I would already be, say, working in a cybersecurity space, and then there would be someone like, "How do I get a job?" And then people just like swoop in to tell them about how they're a bad person and how their cat is evil and haunted them. Or people come up with like things to troll people over just for trying to get started. Nowadays, it's like people will come in to protect those people and be like, "Hey, hold on, chill out, people. Let's help this person."
Yeah. Not only is it an inclusive community, but a lot of people will be held accountable. You see that quite a bit, especially on Twitter, where it can really fly. So if you have any questions, just a reminder, drop them in chat with a Q at the beginning, and we'll get to them throughout the course of the show. So, Nato, okay, so we're talking about mentorship. Obviously, I'm sure we'll spend some time talking about mentees also. But how does since we're cybersecurity professionals, how does a cybersecurity professional get started being a mentor, which is really the $1 million question, right?
I think it's a tricky question because, what defines a mentor? And I think the first thing that helps you define mentorship in, say, like an industry is understanding the outcome that you're trying to create, right? And so if you're trying to mentor someone, you want to clearly define the journey that you're sending them towards. So if the journey is, I want to help people become pen testers, or and you can always start with, what is it that you've already done before? It could be like, where is it that you already specifically work, and start with the experiences that you have, because everyone has unique experiences and there's insight in that. So the difference between, say, telling someone what everybody else does versus your opinion on something is your opinion then qualifies what's a little more of what you would consider, say, like an insight. So really, a willingness to share your opinion with people who are trying to get to where you are, I would say it starts with that, and then an interest. And if you have this interest in helping other people, you don't I guess mentorship in a lot of ways is then having a willingness to define, like, hey, I'm going to help you get to this very specific place. Like, I'm going to help you get these types of jobs, and then basically just start going through the actions and actually try to get that result. And if you can't get the result you're looking for, it's probably not clear enough. So it could just mean refine the outcome you're trying to create. And that could literally just be that. Just keep refining.
Yeah. So I guess what are your so people who are in chat want to become a mentor, and by the way, I want to let chat know, like I kind of just said it a minute ago, that I seek mentorship as well. Like it's not like when you become a mentor, you've reached the summit and now like you can only mentor, right? Like it's a very fluid, dynamic relationship. You could seek many mentors across many different capacities, and you could also mentor others. And I'd also argue, when you do mentor, not only does it feel great because you're helping somebody, but it reinforces your own understanding and awareness of whatever the topic is that you're currently discussing. So Nato, for cybersecurity professionals that want to get started being a mentor, you've talked about some of the things that they should measure and understand, but what kind of where should they go? What should they do? Should they actively ask for mentees, or should they, what would be kind of the workflow to operationalize that?
That's a good way to ask. So I would say, if you were to start with, say, okay, so what you want to help people with, start there, of course. Then basically, like, I would say always come up with a plan of some sort before just aimlessly doing something. And what I've tested that seems to generally work is start just making posts asking for people who would be interested in basically being your mentees. And then really what you'll run into is, if you're making posts and, say, like social media, it can take generally about like 3 months of making, say, even one post a week before anyone even pays any attention to anything you say. So I would say make like weekly posts with something. Especially the fastest way to get people to like see, like, follow you is like take like a selfie or something, or a picture like showing who you are, and represent yourself, and post at least once a week. And then to tell a story about what you want to help people with, because telling a story is more likely to get people on board to what you're here to try to help them with. And
Mhm.
you can even start with, like, maybe you don't know a story to tell, is like, tell a story about your life. Like, if you're alive, you have a story guaranteed. So you can just start talking about the story that you live in this moment, that you did this thing that you can help people with. But it goes back to, what is that thing that you can help people with? So I would say make posts like once a week for like three months. You'd be shocked. It'll launch pad you, and then start being specific. Just say, I'm a mentor. I'm here to mentor. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Call
Let's
to
do it.
actions.
Yeah, yeah. And I agree that like letting the community know that you're interested in mentoring people. I think of like JJ Davy, who is in the community and he's very outspoken that he's trying to help mentor people. And occasionally he'll have some burnout issues with that, and he'll actively say, "I'm not doing anything right now with this." But I agree. And also I think it's advantageous if you really are truly interested in mentoring people, like looking for the indicators of people needing mentees. And I don't mean pushing yourself onto them, but you're talking about posting on LinkedIn and stuff like that. I feel like there's certain people who post that I feel like almost compelled to want to help them, right? Like I help a lot of people, but I feel compelled to help them. And it's usually a post, and you would never fabricate this, right? But it's usually a post of something that they've done, and now they're at the next level and they're encountering a challenge, right? So they've demonstrated self initiative and motivation. They've done something, and now they're encountered a challenge, and they're honest and they're slightly vulnerable about how they're struggling with that challenge. And I've always felt when I read those posts, it's very honest. It's like, yeah, I remember struggling with that myself. Like I could
Hmm.
totally empathize with this individual. I want to help them. So I guess just to give my 2 cents on, if you're really serious about mentoring people, how you can take advantage, not take advantage of that, but like you could take that knowledge I just shared, not take advantage of the people. That's insane what I'm saying. Okay. So yeah. So yeah, another thing that I wanted to ask you about that I jotted down in my notes here, Nato, is when do you think it's time? Like, are there any, not everybody has the best of intentions or is great at execution. So what kind of red flags might someone want to look for, both in the mentor or the mentee relationship, where, hey, you know what, this actually is not a good relationship or a good use of either person's time or whatever, and maybe it's time to reevaluate the relationship. What are your thoughts around that?
Red flags are definitely a thing.
Mhm.
And if you're looking for a mentor, and there's a mentor saying that they can give you, like, if you join my program, you will get this exact thing. The reality is, like, no one can actually guarantee that, because it's kind of up to you. Like, what you get out of a program or what you get out of knowledge, like, that's purely up to you. And so if someone's trying to say, hey, come join me, pay me all this money or whatever, or just follow me blindly, either way, I'm sure neither one's a good direction to go. But like, if people are giving you these guarantees, like, I guarantee you're going to make like $5 million in a month, like, that's someone just probably trying to, now that's an extreme silly example maybe. But then also, like, if you are a person who actually is trying to mentor people, you also in a way have to make sure that your time is going to go to those who are going to actually, like, do something. And you'd be shocked, like, I think having resources out there, like making like a social presence, like things like YouTube channels or an Instagram or something like that, where you have like a catch-all where you put information out there that's really truly for everyone. I think that's a great thing and a great way to kind of like have generally available resources. But then when your time is concerned with someone who you're going to have conversations with and spend time with for months, then you really want to, I use applications these days, or something that is an automated task, that if they can't do like a basic task, then maybe wait till it could be that they're emotionally not in the right place. It could be that they just haven't had the time. But as a mentor, give people things like applications with something like, give me this one little simple thing, like something that you can do in 15 minutes. It might take them 3 hours, who knows? But give them a task that's even like small, not a big task, a very small task. And really, that is sort of like, if you get someone who does something, that's a sign that they'll do something else. So I'd say look for signs that people are going to do things and follow, in general, like are in a place where they're ready to follow instruction. And so, and people have their phases. So also, don't, if someone is slow and is not like moving along as fast as you think they should, be patient with people. You'd be shocked. I've seen people who take 7 years to accomplish something that other people do in like a year. And really, and when you mentor at least say like 200 people, you will find these situations where it's not that this person who took 7 years to make this big achievement is like less capable or less intelligent. I think it's very important to remember to just like sometimes pumping the brakes, and maybe once every 3 months of talking to someone is a life-changing situation. You don't have to be in their life every single day. So anyways, I have a lot of thoughts around that, I guess.
No. It's all good. And I feel like it's a lot easier to wrap your head around conceptually of being a mentee and be like, oh, this mentor isn't giving me what I want, or I don't feel like I'm getting what I need from this. It's a little bit inverted. And I think it's important to talk about when the mentor is trying to assess whether or not the mentee is serious about the relationship and willing to put in the work, right? Because that's basically what it is. The mentor's already done it. The mentor does have to do work, but really, I would argue that a lot of the lift is on the mentee side. And to your point, if they're not ready to commit to that lift, you got to have that serious conversation about, is this really a good time to do this? So, mentoring is very, very wonderful, but occasionally you get situations where, someone might just be looking for an easy button, and that's really not the intent, right? So moving on, and I see the questions in chat, y'all. I don't think I'm not seeing that. I'm super excited. We're doing a little bit of this. We're gonna have a raffle. We'll do Q&A. So don't worry. Drop the Q in the front. Pretend it. We are gonna go gangbusters on the Q&A. Okay. Nato. So I don't even know the answer to this. Do you need any certifications? Are there any certifications around becoming a mentor?
Well, I always find certifications, because like certifications contain learning and general information that probably came from somewhere relevant. So I find like all learning valuable, because and the other thing is like some people have resources. So maybe for some, paying $2,000 for like a little quick training program like is nothing for their bank account, while for others that's a significant investment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with certifications, I think it matters more about people's circumstances, because knowledge is knowledge. If certifications are kind of out of someone's financial bucket, if they're trying to deal with like, what if I fail this and have to do it over again? Every time someone fails a certification, they might have to pay $500 to take it the first time, and then maybe $500 to take it the second time. I would say for someone who is in that situation where they might not be able to just like pay for everything, the certification doesn't actually change your ability to accomplish anything. The information and the knowledge, that's everything. I would say as long as you're learning things, that's what's going to take you to whatever you're trying to accomplish, because ultimately like the next step is, are you taking what you learn and taking action? So then I would say like, if you're actively doing things with what you're learning, trying to apply it, trying to do something with it, like evidence of trying new things is a powerful trait to exhibit.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And I'd also, you kind of touched on this earlier when you started mentioning financials a little bit, right? Like, I feel like there's two things going on. One, there's a lot of free resources out there, almost to the point of overwhelming and paralyzing people because they don't know where to go. And part of like, mentors can help direct you in the right direction. And sometimes, that direction might be something that has a cost associated with it. But I feel like we have shifted from like price points being associated with access to materials, and the price points are actually access to time, because the materials that you could get freely available are actually aggregated, curated, aligned organizationally in a way that makes sense. And then you have like, a mentor or whatever, or like a mentor is typically like an ad hoc relationship type thing, but sometimes a mentor is kind of a fixed thing that comes with a program. And I feel like that's what you're paying for nowadays, right? Like, again, because the materials are out there, it's putting them in the order and explaining why you should do it in this order and stuff like that. That is really the value add of those programs. Just to throw that out there. in my point.
It can fast track, because the thing is, if you're paying for a program, that does mean that someone structured it, and you can waste years just digging aimlessly through the internet, because let's be honest, the internet is a needle in a haystack scenario.
Yeah.
And really, like, paid programs are really just designed to get you like straight to the point. Obviously some are better than read reviews. If there's a good review on a program, it's probably a good program, and it probably goes straight to the point. And that's a good point that you do make, because that is a thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, yes, it gets straight to the point. And I tell people all the time, like when it comes to like boot camps or those type of things, or even like 4-year programs, it's like, look at what it is. And if you can't assess what the value is from just the raw material, then definitely talk to at least 2 people who have gone through it, in case you accidentally get the person who, like, their dad runs it or something like that. So you get that independent opinion, and people, the internet talks, and people are honest with reviews and stuff like that. So I definitely agree with the value of that. And, so many people I have seen get frustrated with like doing a pen testing course, because they think that that's cybersecurity, and then they realize that they actually want to do GRC or something like that, and it can still add value, but it's not as focused a path to get to where they want to be. It'll help a little bit, but it's not real. They could have spent that time doing something else. And again, it gets back to time. As far as I'm concerned, time is really one of the most valuable resources we have. So wasting it is kind of not cool, in my opinion.
I think time is infinitely more valuable than money, which is why I'll talk a little more casually. But like, if you have the money and there's something that you can learn, like, I don't know, spend it. And then if you don't, then there's ways to learn things. Great. But the other thing is, if you don't necessarily have money, someone else does, and someone else will help you get the training that you want. So you just have to learn how to then negotiate. So you don't actually have to have money to negotiate. You just find people who you're willing to help and create mutual situations with people. And then you can get all kinds of things together, and everyone wins. Everyone can win.
Everyone can win. I love it. I love it. So let's just take a minute here. And I'm just going to tease the survey for everybody. Okay. Not the survey. We're not doing a survey. We are not doing that. Although I did learn how to do a survey today on this platform, which is awesome. We are going to tee up the raffle, y'all. And I know I don't have a consistent hashtag or whatever, so we're doing hashtag mentor. So if you want to enter for a, what are we doing? Cyber supply drop. Thank you very much. If you want a 1-month Blue Team Labs online premium subscription, drop hashtag mentor in chat right now, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So let's do this. All right. So you ready to take on a couple Q&As, Nato?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. I saw some excellent ones in here too. Love the community. Let's see. Oh, some nice people saying some nice stuff in here. Look at this. Like, I'm a mentor. Thanks, Josh. That's very nice of you. Let's see, Casey.
I love that mentorship perpetuates mentorship. It's like everyone really, like, there's no reason not to. It's fun, actually.
Yeah. How would you find a mentor, Nato? Jonathan asks.
Well, so Jerry mentioned people like JJ if you're ever on LinkedIn, but there's if you go online, there are a lot of different types of mentors out there. So you can even go and kind of look at different types of mentors, like pen testing mentors, and maybe explore like their YouTube content if they have some. So there's like the cyber mentor, different folks, and see who you like first, like figure out their styles, because you can kind of figure out, you can shop around for mentors and be like, what's their style, what's their vibe, find someone you vibe with. And then if you like their stuff, just see if you can connect with them. And sometimes they have paid programs. That's an easy way to get people's attention sometimes, because sometimes the only reason that programs cost money is because they don't have, like Jerry says, time and availability sometimes, because people got to eat. So sometimes if you're not paying, they can't eat anyways. So you got to feed them. So feed your mentors. That's one way to do it. You can also find people working in roles and ask them how they got into their role and if they're interested in a mentee. And you'd be shocked at how special you'll make a lot of engineers feel just by saying, hey, I would love it if you would mentor me. I look up to you. And a lot of times they'll be like, wow, wait, really? You look up to me? And that you'll hear that so often. So you'd be shocked at sometimes just go find someone doing exactly what you want to do. You could go look at like VMware, go find some people who work at VMware and be like, oh my goodness, that person doing that exact job. And then be like, hey, how did you get doing what you're doing? Sometimes they'll reject you, but you'd be shocked. People, there's some nice people in the world. You'd be shocked. Just ask.
Yeah, there are some great people. And I'd even suggest too, like, I wouldn't even pose it as like, will you be my mentor? Because I feel like that you're asking the person to make a commitment that they may not be ready to. And I'm not saying you have to sell them, but instead of asking them to be the mentor, you could just ask them, hey, like, hey, I'm really interested in VMware. Like, what would you recommend I check out first? Like, I haven't done it before, and I really want to see if it's for me. Where would you recommend? And then they'll tell you. And then if you go do whatever they told you to do, and you come back and you say you did it, and ask them for something else, you will organically develop that mentor relationship. Instead of asking them to make the commitment, you basically kind of show them that you're willing to do the mentee side of the relationship. And, I've yet to meet someone who, if they ask me a question, I give them something and they go do it and come back. Like, why wouldn't I want to help them again? Like
True.
It takes me 30 seconds to tell someone like, go do this, this, and this. Right. And obviously some mentoring things can be a little bit more, but you can start doing that. And then you basically are a mentor mentee relationship at that point. And if you want to formalize it, go for it. But it's not about the cert, right, Nato? It's about the knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you end up meeting people along the way as long as you're doing just about anything too. In a lot of ways, I would say like the people you meet along the way bring unique lessons individually too. And I think I've always found that to be a special thing. And even if you're a mentor, my belief is that I learned something new from anyone I've mentored. Even if it's for like a month and we had just like 3 conversations, like it's a learning experience for everyone, in my opinion.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Let's check how we're doing. Okay, so we've got 13 entries, guys. I know it's not a huge audience today, huge chat. So if you want the Blue Team Labs online, today is the day for you to jump in there. Your odds are looking good. We'll take one more question, and then we'll do the raffle. Tom asks, do mentors have a teaching plan, or are they like a therapist and just help mentees find themselves? Great question, Tom.
In a way, it's kind of reminds me of like therapy in some ways. But the thing about mentorship is it's requesting an action that ideally will lead you in a direction. So mentorship in a lot of ways is a lot more about action taking and whatever, like if you're actually looking for a good mentor and then the goal is to get you actively doing things in the world versus I would say coaching is a little closer to therapy, where therapy doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like go out and take some big action of some sort. Like, for example, like if I'm going to mentor someone, I'm going to be like, you need to make 3 posts a week. And if you're not going to do that, I don't know. Just let me know that if you made those posts. It might not be that. That's just a random, just arbitrary thing that I might do, right? Versus if it's a coach, I'm like, well, have you ever thought about what are some things that you like? Have you thought about some of those things that you like? That falls in the realm of coaching. Like, what do you like? Versus go do this thing and then tell me how you feel about it. That's more mentorship.
Oh, all right. I love it. All right. So let's do the drawing really quickly and then we'll get back to the questions. Let me do this. Okay, guys, we're going to do the drawing. You know that I've invested in my my soundboard here so we can have really exciting things. So here we go for the 1 month of Blue Team Labs online. There we go. Good luck, everybody. I see base in there. And Jonathan Reed. Nice. All right, so Jonathan, congratulations on winning that prize. Just connect with me on LinkedIn or Discord after the show, and I'll make sure you get what you need to be there. So, yeah, we have fun on the stream, Nato.
Good stuff.
I love it. So Ty asks a question. I think this is a good one, and this is really a mental state. how can I be a mentor if I'm still building myself?
Well, a lot of the battles that we deal with are like whatever you emotionally are trying to like manage or cope through. Like interestingly enough, you'll find that well, and maybe I'll put it the way that I experience it for myself is like if there's something that I've experienced or felt, someone else has probably experienced or felt the same thing. And maybe I've worked through that situation before. And it could even be something like not feeling like I deserve to apply to certain kinds of jobs. It could be
Mhm.
something as simple as that. And maybe you once had that and you got your first SOC analyst job and you know, never had a SOC analyst job before. Well, now all of a sudden, whatever like those feelings you had to work through going through all those applications, that grind, that like don't stop, keep going, just keep applying, keep doing what you need to do, like that cheerleading in a way, that even if you don't feel like you've done much, think of something that you've done, because there's it could be anything. Even if you're working on yourself, it goes back to what's your tomorrow, not what's your yesterday, not
Mhm.
what's your tomorrow. Your tomorrow is what you might want a mentor for. So the things that you're building, we're always all building. I'm still building. I bet you anything, Jerry's still building. We're
Oh
all
yeah.
still building. But the reality is that there's someone who sees your footsteps in a light that, like, a lawyer once told me, remember this, whoever we are for ourselves, we will see anything that we do for ourselves as common. The reality is that anything you do is actually probably not as common as you think. And I'll put it that way. And that even comes from someone who had to give me that advice. You've probably done a
Yeah.
lot of things that aren't common.
And I think you've just defined imposter syndrome. Like I really feel like that's what you just defined is, like you see yourself and you're like, well, this is no big deal. Like, personally, I suffer from that where I always get a little angst whenever I'm going to give a talk to a audience of cybersecurity professionals, like, and Simply Cyber aside, but like at a conference, like, Texas Cyber Summit or DEF CON or something like that. I'm always like, everybody in this audience already knows what I'm about to tell them, right? It's so normal. And you just got to kind of push through that. But um, so Nato, I do have a question because we're talking about mentoring. I'm kind of curious. Like, you are a senior instructor at Rapid Ascent, right? So do you have any experiences from mentoring? Because as a teacher, right? I mean, you are by virtue the mentor in that arrangement of kind of the student mentor, relationship. So I'm just curious if you have any experiences from your Rapid Ascent work.
Yeah, one of the things that I try to do is give people ways to like, how do I put this? Exercise skills that require, kind of like if you're trying to play the violin, learning cybersecurity in a lot of ways requires constant practice, like trying to learn an instrument, a musical instrument. And for someone who hasn't worked in technology or cybersecurity, it might be kind of hard to kind of understand how that might work. Like, how do you pick up these skills? Sometimes it's not what you read in a book and memorize. Sometimes it's, I've done this like 100 times. So one of the ways that I try to help mentor the students is produce resources that allow them to have something that's in their hands that they can take home with them. And maybe they go through the lesson of the day, maybe they go through the lab, great. Maybe they go through the whole program, but then once they graduate, what about having something that lets you continue to practice for those who really want to shine a certain skill? Maybe they want to get better at like learning how to like extract data from another system or something like that. Or maybe they want to get better at cryptography and they want to get better at generating keys or something along those lines. People have what they find that they like. So I try to give people ways to have like labs that they then have in their own hands that they can keep and take with them, and the skills to go with that.
Oh, that's just fantastic. It like I know everybody kind of came up in different areas and there's different countries in chat and everything like that. But what you're saying, it just made me think of like industrial arts class, like in middle school or high school, where like you'd build a bird feeder or you'd build a baseball bat. Like you have that kind of tangible skill, tangible artifact that you take afterwards. Because I feel like a lot of times when you do a class, or if you do like, like a 1 week boot camp, which is, I know that's not what Rapid Ascent's doing, but like, it's just like cramming the data in your brain. And then you don't really take anything with you that you can operationalize or take advantage of. It's more just so you can say you've done it. And, I think that that's just an excellent form of mentoring, to be able to give people things that resonate with them. So I guess if you're listening in chat, I would argue, we talked earlier about like what are ways to be good at mentoring and stuff like that. I think that that's a fantastic way, Nato. I'm actually going to take that with me as I go off and continue doing what I do. So thank you for that.
Some fun stuff out there. I like to give people puzzles with infrastructure as code, because it puzzles that build real world muscle memory that's relevant.
Yeah, muscle memory is definitely important on the engineer side of the house. What other questions we got here? My chat just kind of jumped here. I have a question for you, Nato. It's a good one. Give me 1 second.
Sounds good.
You know what? I have great moderators. So Josh and Baser and Mod, I have to get them the ability to like throw the questions up, because this is not going to work. Hold on. And then I've got all this mentor drawing stuff in here. Oh, here we go. Hackus asks, as a mentor, how often do you write letters of recommendations? Do they add value to the public profile when applying for jobs?
That's reminds me, there's one I need to write right now. You would be shocked at how few people ask for letters of recommendation. It's so few, in fact, that I have written a letter of recommendation for everyone who's ever asked me for one, and I've mentored at least hundreds of people, probably more than that at this point. I've worked with thousands of businesses, and I've mentored hundreds of people, and I've only written only a very small amount of people have written, even asked for letters of recommendation. Ask. I think they're beautiful things. I think it's brilliant. I think you should always ask for a letter of recommendation. And you remind me that I need to get back to one of the only requests that I've gotten in a long time. So. Anyways, yes.
Well, and how do you, I feel like a lot of times people ask for a letter of recommendation because they're applying to university where they need one, or they're going for some, specific role that requires it. Do you think that they add value to the public profile? Like on LinkedIn, you can ask for people to write recommendations.
True.
And then people can look at those. Do you know, what do you think the value is of that, from a professional perspective?
I think it can be a trust building thing, especially if it's someone who, well, most people, almost anyone knows anything. I think there's a book called like 6 Points of Contact or something. Whatever that book is, Google that. I don't remember the exact name or the author, but whatever that book is, it has a good point about everyone knows someone. And so if someone writes you a letter of recommendation, you put it on your public profile, that's going to improve some degree of trust to those who look at you. And another thing that is interesting, and I think internally unique about letters of recommendations, is it's hard to find opportunities to receive sort of like someone else's outside view and opinion of you. And it helps build self-awareness, because sometimes like hearing how someone else describes, say, me, helps me then understand how like others might see me, and different people see me in different ways. And you hear all the different angles of which how people perceive how and who I am, and it's fascinating. But you can't get these kinds of things without asking for those outside opinions on top of that.
Yeah, like I introduced you as a DevSecOps engineer, very technical, but you may not know Nato got made his bones in the GRC side of the house, right? So you may, it's interesting how when people describe you or talk about you, how it shapes opinion. Justin asks, this might be personal choice, right? Would you start with 1 or 2 people that you're mentoring, and maybe a couple times a week, or multiple people once a week? What's your strategy or paradigm for mentoring?
So I guess it would depend on if it's short term or long term, because long term you want to stave off burnout. And if you're doing long term mentorship, once a week for, say, like an entire year, is anything more than that, you increase the likelihood that you're going to end up missing sessions and other things, and then that can then just create complicated situations. but if it's short term, you can do things like maybe like 1 month where we're going to just do like 2 touch points every single week, and we're trying to get to one very specific goal for something you're trying to do. That might be a little more intense. So if you're trying to do frequent meetings, whether it's with one or multiple people, keep like that stuff like short term. If you're doing long term, try to have like one at a time until you've kind of got used to mentorship. Because in the beginning, if you've never mentored, one at a time, because just kind of wrapping your head around what's going on in the other person's world, it's you get a window into someone else's life, and that's time consuming, and you can address more attention to others when you focus on one at a time in the beginning, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it can also it can take a lot of time, and sometimes there's an emotional toll because some people have real tough situations and a lot of adversity, and it's not necessarily your responsibility to solve that problem, but as you begin to form a relationship, you begin to have emotional, I guess, investment in it, and you understand, at least from the mentoring I've done, that like what you're doing for them can help them elevate out of the circumstances that they're in, and then so you got to be ready and prepared for that. Just if I may, for this question, Justin, when I started the YouTube channel, right? Like, I kind of mentor, but really informally, right? Ad hoc. Like Nato, you're doing much more formal mentoring. You do Rapid Ascent, obviously, which puts you in a mentoring role, but you have helped others in the community through a more formal mentoring. For me, I found that I was being asked the same question over and over and over again, and I was happy to respond. But again, time is valuable to me. So I mean, that's part of the impetus for SimplyCyber as a channel. If you ask me the question over and over again, if I just make a video about it, I can drop the video to you in a link and say, hey, this should answer 80% of your question. If you got any further, questions or whatever, follow up with me. And this is like that mentor-mentee relationship. Here is something for you to do that will help you with what your problem is. And if you want, come back to me. And most times it answers the question and we take the relationship a little further. And sometimes they don't even follow the link because it's too much to watch the video. And then they really didn't want it. They were looking for that easy button. So I like to think of it as mentoring at scale. So I don't know if I can create a term, but that's what I'm calling YouTube.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I completely, I think the world goes back to the internet thing. Like you couldn't just like launch a YouTube channel in 1980. That's not possible anywhere. But now you can have, say, a bunch of people who you actually do spend like the time in your video content. That's your time too, even though it's like at scale, but it's still your time to them. And spending time with everyone, really, and building a community, because that's what it's all about, and doing what you're doing. Like you're spending time with everyone, even here, and sticking with them for a journey, really. And they're coming here for part of their journey, finding something that's providing them with some context to help them get to a goal. And that's mentorship. It really is. So, it kind of comes down to what works for whoever's doing the mentorship. It's a personality thing, I think.
Yeah. And I will say that when I do get messages from people who have, achieved what their goal was, whatever that is, it's different for everybody, right? But when they've achieved their goal, they're super pumped and they share that with me, and they attribute me as part of that success or part of that journey's accomplishment. It's the most rewarding thing. So this entire live stream is called How to Get Started as a Mentor, right? And I'm just telling you, as far as the payoff goes, like it's not money. It's like it's like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like soul enriching. It's like spiritual nourishment. I can't explain it, but it's very, very gratifying. It feels great when you can help someone.
It does feel good. It keeps it motivated. And then it's also exciting when you see someone else helping someone else next. You're like, oh, it's exciting.
Yeah. I'll tell you, like, we have a great audience in chat, like some regulars in there, and I always see them helping each other out, like BSEC, Josh, James, Tom, like they're like Jess is in there, like they're always helping each other out. I love it. So James asks, regarding letters of recommendation, since we spoke on that, at what part of the relationship is it a good time to ask for one? Is there any faux pas, Nato?
I guess it depends on the relationship, because if you haven't done anything with the mentor and you don't feel comfortable like asking them questions in general, maybe get to that point first. And if you get to a point where you can feel semi-conversational with a mentor, then I would say then you're probably in the clear to start asking for like a letter of recommendation. Because if a mentor is conversational with you, that means they probably feel comfortable enough to kind of like, when people get to know someone after a while, we naturally relax to a different degree. We're like, oh, it's familiar talking to you. So that would be the time.
I love it. All right. So let me just tell chat. Oh, I see Kev Tech in here. Very nice. Chat, get your questions in. We're almost at an hour, and we want to keep it at about an hour tonight. So get your chat questions in. So Nato, do you have any, like, I guess, notable stories of a mentoring experience that you'd want to share that kind of really stick out as memorable?
Well, I can tell you the one that probably got me like most into mentorship. So I guess starting with the context that like my dad basically ran a business around like mentoring people, and I had I was like working in cloud or something along those lines, and I was ready to look for like another role, and I had started this like little temporary company and got this one customer, and then I got poached by Logarithm at that time. And I was like, hey, I know that I just started the service for you, but I really want to pursue this opportunity. And so I like just fire my first customer immediately. And then she's like, well, would you at least be willing to teach my like son how to get like into the space that in the kind of work that you do? And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. That sounds great. So I went ahead and had a couple meetings with them, and I was about to leave this other company. I went and talked to them, and I was like, well, I could find a replacement. I could teach them up myself. And then if they're good enough, then I bet you they'll provide you some good value at your company. And they were like, well, we're going to miss you, but that sounds good. And so I spent maybe like 3 long meetings with this person, this great person. And for privacy purposes, I'll keep names out of it. But they ended up getting the job, and then they stayed with that company and became like a very like strong like member at that company who grew and excelled. And then later on they came and asked, because I had advanced into like more data science. When I started getting all obsessed with data science, I was like, this is so cool that I will pursue this and not stop. Well, the space I was moving out of, he was like, well, you were doing some stuff that I'd like to learn how to do. Can you teach me how to do that again? I was like, well, okay, that sounds good. We did it last time, so why not? And then he went for it and failed immediately, like just so fast. And I was like, well, didn't work out, I guess. And I was like, if you're willing, I'd say you should try again. And he's like, yeah, but you can't apply to a job twice. I'm like, of course you can. He's like, yeah, but isn't that bad? No, these rules I don't know where these rules come up, where people come up with these rules. They don't exist. Just keep applying to the job that you want. So he applied again. I helped him get into another interview this time, and then he gets the interview, passes the job, gets into the company, and then once again is now a major driver in this other company, helping them grow. And it provided value to the companies that I left. And then all of a sudden I leave, and there's someone who knows the things that I knew who can carry on without me, even for that matter. And then I can, anyways. So it's like after that, I just started getting into just wanting to do a lot more of that. And I was like, this is actually pretty neat. You could really, like, I changed this person. It wasn't just, they changed their own life, but they came and talked to me, and I so happened to be the provider of the information that helped them be like, oh, I didn't know that. They could have gone to anyone but me, but they came to me. And that's what made it special. And that's what makes being a mentor special, is they could go to anyone, but they go to you. And that's why you do it, because there's something about it that's different.
I love it. I love it. And one thing that I thought you were going to mention, it certainly occurred to me. So just to preface this, like I say on this channel all the time, that really one of the most important things that you can do to get a job in the industry or to level up in the industry, or really just to have a successful career. Like you can have successful career other ways, but it helps, is networking. Networking. It's so important. It's how you meet mentors. It's how you find mentees, right? It's how you find jobs, opportunities, people who have skills that you don't have. I'm never going to be good at pen testing, right? I could dabble, but I know a bunch of people now who can pen test. And I feel like one of the ways of truly having a good network is giving value, contributing to the network, taking from the network as it's appropriate. And I feel like mentoring is really one of those mechanisms that enables people to contribute and to develop a network, because you're personally engaging with this individual and helping them understand, helping them grow, helping them develop. And of course you're developing a personal relation, or a professional personal relationship, a network relationship. And I'm curious, Nato, like in your experience, maybe it was this individual who you taught up, the son of the owner there, or maybe it's a different one, or maybe it's just a general statement about your network in general. But how has mentoring, either from a mentee or mentor side, influenced or affected your professional network?
Well, mentoring single-handedly allowed me to have a business, because I remember there was a time when I just decided to shift from the conventional work world over to more like entrepreneur. And I've always been a little more of, I've always done entrepreneurship, but like this time I just went all the way 100% on my own thing. And that leap, the only reason it panned out the way that it could was because this whole time there were people who I've helped along the way. And all of a sudden, I'm trying to find my footing in, say, a market, a business market. Suddenly, the people who I helped get into jobs all around the world know who I am, and they're running the companies. And I don't know how else to describe that, but it's a you don't have to do these things. I didn't do it for money. I didn't do it for people to build business services with me and things like that. But when all of a sudden, like all these people who are like now directors over here, and then we got a CISO over here, and then we've got some other CISOs all over the place, and we got some people running their own small computer shops doing who knows what. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're doing some service. Oh, I know you. Oh yeah, let's do some stuff. And then you're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. You just already know all these people, and they trust you because you're part of the conduit that got them there in the first place.
Nailed it.
Powerful.
Trust. We're human beings by virtue. We trust is an important thing. We don't give it out easily. Once it's earned, it lowers boundaries, right? Like you're more likely to work with someone you trust. And when you developed that relationship with them, you weren't angling for a deal. There wasn't a self-driven motivation or incentive that was perverse, for lack of a better term. There was no perverse incentive for you to establish that network relationship. You were doing it for good intentions, right? And I think that that's really the root of good networking. And I'm so happy that you said that you planted those seeds, if you will. You grew up with them, and it turned out really well. I feel like that's really valuable of networking. And again, people in the audience shouldn't think like, oh, if I network with like all these people, they're going to be like my assets when I grow up. No, it's not like that. Yeah, no, that's not how you do it. Just like do good things and good things happen, right? So, all right, let me give it to Nato. You can take the floor, Nato. Let me ask, what would you like to share? Any parting thoughts with chat today?
Well, I guess whether you're looking for a mentor or trying to be a mentor, I would say the thing that you get the most out of it is you really are building like actual real world relationships with people when you're dealing with mentorship on either side of the coin. And if you learn how to work well with a mentor, it teaches you how to work well with people too. So it's a way to just like, it'll improve your business relationships with your managers, with your other coworkers, maybe even with your family members, even because you're spending time with someone who you're trying to, especially the more effort you put into making a relationship work well, especially one that goes with you for a while. Mm-hmm. Like you get a lot more out of it than anything really even money could buy. Which I've come to find that just do things that are going to like enrich other people, and it will enrich more than those who you directly work with or touch or help. It like spreads. It really does.
Oh, that's such great guidance, man. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Nato Riley with Rapid Ascent, senior instructor, and so many other things. Check out Nato on all his social medias. Let me tease next week's live stream, since we're doing weekly now. Apparently, I've kind of gotten crazy with that. We're talking about operationalizing purple teaming. We're going to have Arian Sagetti on. He's a senior solution architect over at Simulate. They're doing some interesting things, but we're going to talk about like what is purple teaming and how can we actually do it? Like, it's a cool buzzword, right? But like, how do we actually do it? He's going to come on. I've already had a conversation with him. Really interesting guy, very smart fella. So we're going to have some fun with that. So check out the channel and come back next Thursday, and we'll hang out and we'll do that. So yeah. Well, thanks everybody so much. Really appreciate it. And until next time, stay secure.